A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mwangushampagi is my name. We'll be taking a look at the major events, the major items that made news headlines during the week. And one of them is the controversy in Parliament over Gen Elly and other members of Parliament, particularly veteran legislator Cecilia Atim Ogwal. We'll also be discussing Uganda Airlines has announced it will have its first flights on relaunch on the 28th of this month, announcing that on the maiden, actually on the first day, Uganda Airlines plans to fly to 4 different destinations within the region, and then it is expanding to cover many areas in the region, setting out rates which are promotional rates. We'll be discussing, are those rates fair? Do they indicate survival? What does this mean? And of course, the sentencing, the conviction and sentencing of Stella Nyanzi, Dr. Stella Nyanzi, a Makerere University researcher based at the Makerere Institute for Social Research. That's where she used to work before she was arrested. Was finally convicted on Thursday and sentenced to 18 months in prison on Friday, but she will serve 9 months because she has already been in prison since November last year, meaning she has served almost half of her sentence. To discuss those and other issues with me tonight, I have, let me start with the guy nearest to me here, Kenneth Anderson Lukwago. Kenneth Lukwago is a reporter and producer at Radio 1. He spent many years reporting Parliament. So you've been rubbing shoulders in those corridors of Parliament, meeting the general meeting, these Atkins Katushabe, the Member of Parliament who started off this controversy, Team Cecilia Ogwal and the others.
Sure, I have interfaced with a couple of them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice to have you. We have from writer and social critic associated with Media Center, but I know he works with GCIC, and the cooperator, Ivan Rugambwa. Evan, very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles.
I need to keep emphasizing to our viewers, especially those who question your presence on the Fourth Estate, that this is a mass comm student. I graduated from mass comm at Makerere University and was top of your class at your time of graduation.
Yeah, that's...
and we have Isaac Kisa. Isaac Kisa is a business editor at the Independent magazine. Isaac, very nice to have you.
Thank you very much, Charles.
We haven't had you here before, so
yeah.
very nice to have you on your maiden
sure, I'm happy to be here today.
We expect to be feeding off your experience and reporting, especially on Uganda Airlines.
Sure.
Gentlemen, let's start with the Stella Nyanzi conviction and sentencing. Stella Nyanzi was arrested last year. She was charged initially with 3 counts. Yeah, actually up to the end with 3 counts. One is cyber harassment. Another was, I think that's Section 24 of the Computer Misuse Act. He was also charged under Section 25 of the Computer Misuse Act. And but finally, when she was sentenced, Gladys Kamashanyu, when she sentenced her on Friday, when she convicted her on Thursday, she said she acquitted her on 2 charges and convicted her on 1 charge, which is cyber harassment, and sentenced her to, on Friday, to 18 months in prison. But since she has already served the 9 months on remand, she will serve 9 months and get released. I want to start with you, Kisa. This case has been as controversial as they come. Did you see it ending the way it has ended?
In my followings with the postings of Stella Nyanzi, I can say that actually that's what I expected, given that in this government, especially President Museveni doesn't like someone who critiques mainly his government, but most importantly his family. So I expect that there's no way Stella Nyanzi was going to survive that. Of course, it has set a bad precedence in that whoever will be posting things similar to that, of course, will always face the wrath of the law.
What does this mean in view of, you see a country that generates, I keep saying this, a country that generates so little in technological innovation in this transformation of social media, and just not for Uganda, for many other countries, especially in the developing world. You're not on the part of this revolution that is in communication, but your governments are rushing to put controls. Can they manage? Because by the time you arrive at the we did the Computer Misuse Act. We passed the Computer Misuse Act in 2011.
2011, yes.
It's 8 years old. Between the 8 years of the passage of the Computer Misuse Act, lots of new social media communication systems have emerged. Facebook is coming up with a currency called Libra.
Yes.
So many things. The world of technology, the world of communication is changing so fast. Can governments afford to regulate in an area where they are not active players?
I know it's not an easy thing to do. Even UCC itself can confirm to you that they are not in position to control whatever goes into the social media. I don't think UCC can do that. We have other ways that people can actually avoid using directly social media, but they find a way of bypassing it and accessing social media directly. The change that we have with this kind of law is that it is going to discourage people from coming up with their own form of innovation, especially locally. The young people who are coming up with new technologies will try to avoid coming up with this innovation with the view that actually they are going to be the next target. So at the end of it all, the local innovators who want to come up with new things will try to avoid coming up with those innovations, and that's not good for the country. So I think it will be necessary for government to try to, first of all, to weigh in and see whether those policies can actually work against it or not.
Ivan, let me come to you. These laws that appear to impinge on freedom of expression, Article 29 of the Constitution, is a fight between how much is being talked about, especially when they invoke the person of the president or his immediate family or anyone else for that matter. What you want, if you're prosecuting where you think you have either been defamed or if you think something has been libelous against you, or this whole debate about criminal defamation under the Penal Code Act, but also you want this to end as quickly as it can. By sentencing Dr. Stella Nyanzi, you're actually extending the debate. The court for each of her appearances was packed simply because she would blurt out these vulgarities and invoke the name of the president. Does this really help? If you draw it out like this, it's been drawn out, and Stella Nyanzi has been in the news for the last 1 year.
I think that the importance of this is for precedent setting, that the idea that there are sanctions to that kind of writing or that kind of information of style. If you're offending a particular people, the unique case with this particular trial is that we didn't see anybody, because Section 25 of the Computer Misuse Act says qualifies the charge. You know, Section 25 of the Computer Misuse Act, in fact, says that a person must you must disturb the peace, the quiet and privacy of an individual. That assumes that somebody must be complaining, you know, by this particular writing. The president has been on record saying that he doesn't mind anybody who abuses him or insults him. And indeed, I think that the cases where the president...
But you saw that Gladys actually walked away from that and possibly reading from the president, which the president's comments, which were just the other week. She must have read from that and decided, this one, the prosecution didn't prove its case, and then dropped it.
So for me, I think this is a case of the prosecution, the DPP, and the interpretation of particular laws. I think that Stella Nyanzi's writing and the form of activism was in itself repellent to already significant sections of society. I don't think that it needed a law or charging, for example, in court for her to be taken, because this is a social issue. That language, when somebody puts on their Facebook, it is not only one person on the subject of the piece that only reads it. Many people interact with it. So, and I think that activism or the style we operate must be alive to the social context, because there are many people who've been having legitimate criticism of government and the president who have never been touched, who have not been arrested, who have not been the subject of debate. For example, the reason we are debating Nyanzi and her case is because there is a uniqueness to her style. and that it's a very controversial style.
But she said that's artistic, that's literary freedom, or poetic freedom. If you, Stella Nyanzi is a poet.
Yes, that's
She's
true.
been churning out poetry, even when in prison. There's one that came out around the time of her conviction and sentencing, which said, I did not come here to expect to be proved, to be found innocent. I came expecting to be convicted. I was convicted even before I came here. If that is the case, then in civilized society, you are talking about the divide between criminal sanction and social sanction.
Yes, please.
Wouldn't you want to rely more on the social sanctions against people like Stella Nyanzi than criminal sanction?
I agree
to rein
with.
her in?
I mean, I agree with you absolutely. That is why I'm saying that I started with the fact that none of whatever accusations they are leveling against her, no one has come as a witness to say I was offended by this, or which in any case anyway makes Section 25 of the Act therefore a little bit redundant, you know. Because there is already a law on defamation. There is already a law on defamation where many journalists have, have been charged. So this law, Section 25, and the Uganda Law Society has been in court. Was in court, I think, in February this year to challenge this court. We wait for the Constitutional Court's interpretation of the.
Kenneth, let me come to you. Moral policing, and some people interpreting Gladys Kamashanyu's ruling say she was appealing to morality, not to legality. Really, yeah, you can use the law, but the motivations and the convictions are basically moral. Should morality be subjected to criminal sanction?
Well, I think if we narrow this debate to morality, we are going to lose the original reason why Dr. Stella Nyanzi was actually arrested and taken to court. And I think the reason Dr. Stella Nyanzi was actually arrested and taken to court is by merely starting to write about the first family, writing about the president and all those things around it. I think if she had not done so, she wouldn't have been arrested, because she has written previously using that kind of language and nothing happened to her. Even when she was battling it out with the people at Makerere University, she wrote certain things that border to what people will say is not good given the moral context in our country, but she was not arrested. The biggest problem is she simply wrote certain things about President Museveni, and then that's where the problems began. And this, I think, opens up the other bigger picture about freedoms, social media freedoms, and what actually lies ahead. When I look at what is happening, I clearly see that Dr. Stella Nyanzi's case can be looked at as a litmus test, what is likely to happen to others. Of course, you saw closely it followed with Joseph Kabuleta. So there is an attempt to actually try to rein in on people who are actually using social media in a manner that the state or the people in power actually think is not good, especially when they try to sort of criticize or raise issues with the way they are conducting state affairs. So I think the debate should be much more beyond the moral question, but actually the original reasons why Dr. Stella Nyanzi was arrested. Yes. That's the context under which I look at it. Should
President Museveni, as an elected leader, be beyond criticism?
He shouldn't, and I was glad when the other day he came out to say that actually he does not get angered by people saying certain things about him, and that the arrest of people on social media could be a work of some overzealous policemen. And for some time now, we have known President Museveni to be a man who has a thick skin. But also, there are those people who actually think that his political fortunes could be waning out, and all of a sudden, he begins using the fist to be able to deal with any people who would come out to try to challenge his authority, to sort of attack him and so forth. So it could be a vague lie also.
If you check the list of people who have been charged at one time or the other for offending the person of the president, the list is long. You'll take it back to the Haruna Kanavis. That was late 1980s, early 1990s? Yes, as early as then.
Yes.
People were being charged. But the question is, in the face of social media, how do you deal with criticism of the president if you're going to attract social sanction? And number two, to you, Ivan and Kisa.
Yes.
The first family is quite an extended family. But be it Stella Nyanzi, be it Joseph Kabuleta, or the others, their criticism has not extended to those members of the first family that have not rendered themselves to the public sphere. Doesn't that make them legitimate targets for criticism? You can debate the type of criticism, the type of attack on them, but if they are already in the public sphere,
Yes.
are they legitimate targets?
I don't think, my view is already the first family and the rest who are already in the public, there's no way we can debate these issues without actually putting them into the whole issue. Because they're already public figures. And whatever goes into the public, everyone wants to know what's happening in the first family. Secondly, as we have always been saying, the critics of the first family and the entire State House, President Museveni has people who can actually counter all these criticisms. I don't think that President Museveni doesn't have clean people who are with sharp brain to actually counter all these criticisms. So he has all the avenues to actually counter them. It's a matter of telling them, you guys, can you respond to these criticisms that people are laying against my family or the entire State House? They have all that machinery.
And we spend quite a reasonable amount of resources on these counter social media things. I even should be in a better position to tell us.
No,
you have armies upon armies who are on social media. Young people are being recruited by the state, by the government, to counter social media criticism and sell the government narrative. Why isn't the government winning this contest? And you have to resort to the strong arm of the strong fist to be able to rein in people like Stella Nyanzi.
First of all, Charles, it is not true that the president, if there is any person with a thick skin, it's the president. I think if you go on social media, I think that the amount of debate and the amount of interaction, the amount of argumentation, both pro and anti the establishment, are very intense. They are very intense. They are very impassioned. They are very consistent. So the arrests of whether it is Kabuleta or whether Nyanzi are the exceptions to the rule. The rule is actually that there is very, very free debate online against the president, against what we on social media, on WhatsApp groups, on everybody. So there is a temptation to use 2 or 3 cases, and this is not to justify, the arrest. The merits and demerits of the arrests can be debated, but those are the exceptions to the rule. The rule is that there is very free engagement and debate. The president has actually personally even been out there responding. There's a time he wrote a blog at the height of Bobi Wine responding to mentioning individual people on Facebook saying about this criticism. He said, you Sharon on Facebook, you mentioned this and this, but and actually responding to each one of them. So this is an exception to the rule. Now we can debate the individual cases that have come up, and I think I was going to tell you that I think you should have maybe invited the DPP or the police who are charging these people or prosecuting them, because the president, neither the president nor any member of his family, like you're arguing here, has testified in court or appeared as a witness to have been offended, to have been insulted by everybody as a human being.
If the approach taken is to invoke the criminal code, then they do not necessarily have to testify. Because the standards are different. If it were civil prosecution, then the complainants would have to come out and complain and say, we are offended, we are disturbed. And that happens, by the way. People are going after individuals personally and getting prosecuted within the legal system. The question is, when you bring this up, because you have offered Stella Nyanzi and her supporters an opportunity to appeal. Meaning they extend the life of this debate. The vulgarities that she used in describing the president or his late mother, invoking the first lady and the first son, she has opportunity to continue doing that, at least until this is resolved completely. But let's just move away from that. My personal opinion is, I think Gladys Kamashanyu finds herself in a very unique space at the moment, the magistrate who handled this case. One, Stella Nyanzi stripped again. Only the difference this time was that she was on a TV screen inside the Luzera prison because they used the new technology of the video link to get her on her sentencing. But when you pass a judgment, this is a mother, the expectation, and the question I've been asking, the whole idea about affirmative action and the push to have marginalized people in certain positions is that they understand if a person of their kind is appearing on the other side. Stella Nyanzi, during her period of incarceration, has complained of health concerns. She said she miscarried when she was in prison. She wanted medical attention. Yes, the court might have demanded that she proves that, but to ignore some of those things and still sentence her to a jail term, where Section 24 gives you 3 options. You can sentence to a fine of 72 currency points. You can sentence to a jail term of 3 years, or you can do all the 3.
I think, Charles, that is the preserve. That's the prerogative of the judge to determine what sentence she will.
Yes, but you also got to be asking what is the judge thinking.
No. But I think that at the center of this really is there is no question that social media must be regulated. You know, you have seen Facebook paying significant fines to the EU, to the American, appearing before Congress about the unthought about consequences of this free space of interaction, how it has been weaponized in elections to determine and influence election results and everything on mindsets. So this is a very new space that the whole world is grappling with regulating. I think that the debate should be on which laws we are using, or legitimate laws that can regulate this space. And that is why there's an opportunity.
I hear you.
Court, yeah?
It's a valid point you make. The only difference is these particular sections have been transplanted from colonial laws against annoying the queen, against annoying the king, against annoying a visiting prince. You know the one of Blaise Compaoré. Was it Blaise Compaoré when he came here after he had murdered Thomas Sankara?
That's a very grave accusation. You're making
no, I mean that's the question they put to him here. That's the question the journalists put to him here, and ended up in trouble. Maybe just as we get out of because we'll not come back to Stella Nyanzi. I thought the sentencing was a bit questionable, and we'll see how the appeal goes. But also there's
even a court in case, Charles,
a case
by
in
the
court.
ULS, a case in court by ULS about the constitutionality of this law vis-a-vis the constitutional provisions guaranteeing freedom of speech.
Under Section 29 and Article 29.
Yeah, so I think we have an opportunity to wait that out and listen to what the Constitutional Court can determine about the...
Our time is, we'll take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be picking up on another discussion. We'll be discussing the return to the skies of Uganda Airlines. Welcome back to this edition of the Fourth Estate, this segment of the Fourth Estate featuring Kenneth Anderson Lukwago from Radio 1, Ivan Rugamba from The Cooperator and from GCIC, and Isaac Kisa from the Independent News Magazine. Gentlemen, just before we end the discussion on Stella Nyanzi, the ugly scenes of attacks, people throwing bottles at the magistrate after the ruling. Anybody that stated that, I see the Chief Justice saying those should be prosecuted as quickly as possible because these courtrooms are equipped with CCTV cameras, so they were able to capture them. Kisa, a quick one on that before we move on to Uganda Airlines.
Of course, that thing again sets a very bad precedent that no one will always make noise or do anything in court. I really don't think it's warranted. Of course, I know they can actually arrest them because they have cameras, but I don't think it's worth it.
Ivan?
No, I think that you need to send a message that there are certain behaviors that are not allowed in court. The reason people are, supposed to conduct yourself in a particular courtroom, because what happens if you don't, if you say that you do not agree with the ruling, then you will take the law in your own hands and sanction the judge. I think that's a very bad precedent, and the way we sanctioned the Black Mamba incident and come out in unison to condemn it should be the same way we even condemn the less significant assaults.
Anderson.
Well, I think it was unfortunate, but I also think it's an indictment on the courts to be able to dispense justice in a very good manner. Because I believe some of those people who were involved in that fracas came from this background of thinking that the magistrates was not fair in some of the way she handled the case. For instance, there were those who are saying that when she asked for witnesses who are pinning her, when Stella Nyanzi asked for witnesses who are pinning her, the magistrate didn't yield to her request because, like Ivan here said, the law requires that somebody should be there to actually testify and say, I was aggrieved. So they are not good sins. They are things that should not be acceptable, but it should also be a lesson to the judiciary to sort of address some of the misgivings people have about the way they handle cases.
And gentlemen, just my own opinion here. You see, the context of this is Stella Nyanzi is expressing a political opinion. It's political activism. The majority of the crowd in that courtroom is saying this is, you're moving beyond just management of state. You're dictating, you're controlling people. And the way people are going to express those emotions, especially political emotions, varies. In 1991, President Museveni and compatriots chose to pick guns and go to the bush. The courts existed. We have gone through so many attempts of people who think, no, the politics is going the different way. Even the courts, even the court system, even the other arms of the state are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I just invoked the name of Blaise Compaoré. When the people of his country thought things had gone wrong, they walked into parliament, banned it up. Just the way all legislators. So political expression and how it is handled varies, and this might be one of those, yes, it's not good behavior, that's admitted, but the fact is you put it in context and say, why are people behaving the way they are behaving?
But Charles, just a simple one on that. You see, I don't think that legitimate anger should be legitimate. Anger, however legitimate, should be a justification for certain questions. We can understand the context, but we cannot justify or say or explain.
It depends on the context in which you're trying to understand that context.
Because you see, Charles, Kenneth here gave a good context in saying that there were questions on how the judge, for example, handled or arrived at her ruling. Yes. But you see, Stella Nyanzi herself did not deny any of the charges raised against her. In fact, the judge in her ruling said the suspect is unremorseful. She's not remorseful for anything. In fact, Stella Nyanzi, you said it. She said she did not come here to be found innocent. So if you are a judge, you have to argue based on the facts of the case, the arguments presented, and the defense. The defense, she did not deny the charges. What do you do? So how then? So for the people in the courtroom,
do you know that in a courtroom, even if you are charged of murder, the court will not just take on face value your plea of guilt. Yes, if you admit it,
they will actually enter a no guilt.
They will still, in some cases, they will enter a no guilt plea, and then go through, determine whether they should go through the full prosecution or not. It's not a straightforward case. So if Stella Nyanzi felt she had been arrested politically for her posts, she had no business in court to say, I am guilty or not guilty. Because she was convinced she wasn't guilty from the beginning. I mean, there is no better way to say, to enter a plea of not guilty than to ignore and say, these things I'm being charged about, I have no idea what you're charging me with.
But if the judge, if we are going to expect the judge to follow political sentiment or public sentiment, especially like in a courtroom, to give a wrong, then that's a very dangerous precedent for our courts also. We need to also call on people to manage their whatever sentiments and know that the reason you're going to court is to arbitrate a particular case, and the judge does not have to rule a particular way. The judge must argue depending on the facts presented.
Okay,
arguments
gentlemen, we need to move on. I wish we had time to also comment on this drama of UCC, the Ministry of ICT, and the Ministry of Ethics and integrity on banning pornographic material and using newspapers to ban pornographic material. UCC posted, the institutions, the agencies involved in that banning posted on Twitter, and the comments they were receiving, I read through those comments. I think I had read about 160 comments. Let's move on to more positive things, and the return to the skies of Uganda Airlines, now firmly set for the 28th of August. I want to start with the business editor here, Isaac Kisa.
Yes.
It's been a long journey. We first, we fell out of the skies in 2001. We are returning in 2019, almost 2020. Almost 20 years after we got out of the skies, now Uganda Airlines is set to return to the skies. 2 aircraft are already in the country. Another 2 aircraft are expected, and the routes selected. You covering this story on from the business perspective, what does this mean? What should we expect? For starters, has Uganda Airlines worked out its resurrection properly?
As far as I know, sorry, Uganda Airlines are returning in the skies at the time when the skies are really, really turbulent. It's not an easy time, given the fact that it's coming at the time when every country in the region is trying to look at how do we go in the skies. We see Kenya Airways has increased frequency to Entebbe Airways, to Entebbe Airport. We have Tanzania, Air Tanzania coming in the skies, it's flying to Entebbe. We have Rwanda Air flying to Entebbe. Now, within just these 4 countries bordering each other, we already have 4 flights, 4 airlines flying to the Entebbe Airport. And what does that mean? It means there's a lot of competition along the routes, and that places Uganda Airlines into a very unique position in a way that it has to find its way on how it can compete with the rest of the airlines in the region. Given that it's a new airline, having been in the air more than 20 years ago, it means actually it has to up its game. Otherwise, it will be not an easy time for it.
From what you're picking from the preparations, have the preparations been handled the way they should have been? One good thing I think they have done is, one, they will accept payment in Uganda shillings.
Sure.
Number
yes.
2, they have opened at least more than 3 offices. There's an office here in town, there's an office at the airport, and another office that they're going to be where points of contact for people who want to buy tickets. I think some of the innovations now, you can buy a ticket and pay by mobile money. I don't know if that is also coming on. But one of the major questions people have been asking about is, Ivan Rugamba, the rates. Kenya Airways has been exploiting Ugandan travelers or people traveling on this route, the Entebbe-Nairobi route, by charging the most expensive the most expensive return ticket has been on this route. Now Uganda Airlines is offering, I think, $272. Yeah, I think $272 on that route.
Yeah, I think that there are 2 things. One, the return of the airline is a source of national pride, but we must also understand that this will be a business. You know, our taxpayers are investing a lot of money in the revival of the airline, but the idea is that finally this can be run as a thriving economic enterprise. So, although we want prices that are affordable by Ugandans, the airline must also charge money that is competitive, you know, in the airline market. And I think that the rates we have now are fairly competitive. They are slightly below Kenya Airways. They have been
it's $278.
Promotional.
Yeah.
Promotion.
These are promotional. So we are yet to see the standard, the substantive pricing of these of the routes. But I think that they are coming from a context of, Kisa here has just already told you, given a context of how competitive the air or flights are on the continent. But I think that generally, what we are seeing on the African continent, the
Kenya Airways is charging 338.
Yes. That's why I'm saying that the rates for Uganda Airlines are slightly lower. I don't know if it will be maintained as a standard pricing, but they must charge a rate that is sufficient enough for them to remain in business and also be affordable. So it's quite a complicated balancing act that we hope that the managers of the airline will be able to accomplish. But I just wanted to say something on the if Uganda Airline will survive the onslaught or the competition. I think that there are many services, or there are many benefits that we accrue from having a national airline. First of all, if Entebbe can become a transit point for many people traveling, it means that the fortunes of our tourism sector or Uganda or the marketing of the Ugandan brand will be enhanced or be complemented by the arrival of the airline. So, for all intents and purposes, I think we should welcome the arrival of the airline and then watch out. I don't think that any Ethiopia, which is the most successful airline, for example, set out knowing it would emerge. We need to look at the structural complications that have crippled the success of the other airlines and hope that our own managers do a better job of managing the enterprise.
Anderson.
Well, you asked a very critical question whether the revival had actually been planned very well. I found a problem with the manner in which the revival was carried out. First of all, if you look at what is happening now, the planes are ready to go to the skies, but we are still struggling with the managerial issues. For instance, the board of the airline just came in recently when a decision to revive the airline was taken a long time ago. If you follow information closely, you hear there are people actually fighting for jobs. You hear there are squabbles.
Isn't that natural for any business?
But we shouldn't be having those kinds of things for such a strategic revival, given the fact that we already know what caused the first airline, the airline to collapse in the first place. So I'm finding a problem with that. I hope they'll be able to, the new board, which is led by Perez Habwe, will be able to rein in and ensure that whatever is done the way it is supposed to be done, following the laid down laws and emphasizing that everything is done on merit, especially on who should be managing the airline and how its operations should be done. Critical, also very important. I think what we should be looking at is the trickle-down effect of having an airline, and I think my interest would be in the long-distance routes, the planes that are supposed to come in the 20.
The Airbuses.
The Airbuses. Those are the ones which will be going to distant destinations. For instance, in this area where we are competing for tourists, we are competing for investors, you want to fly somebody directly from New York or from Beijing directly to Entebbe. The problem of traveling where somebody has to sit maybe in Dubai and wait for 12 hours or sit in Ethiopia and wait for 9 hours is really problematic. There are sometimes when you are traveling maybe to an African country and you have to fly first to Rome and in order to make it to that African country. So I think when we have those long distance flights, they'll be able to help us to be able to capitalize on investments and the number of tourists that we have here. Then regional, I think there is a competition, yes, but I think these airlines can still go into agreements. And I think that's the next phase I heard that they're going to do to discuss.
I think they've been negotiating those already. You don't have, no airline in the world has aircraft arriving at every destination of every passenger who signs up to them. They have interconnectivity agreements that they sell you one ticket from here. You can fly from Entebbe to return to any destination in the United States, for example. But you don't have to keep getting different tickets. You get one ticket here, you fly from Entebbe and land possibly at Schiphol International Airport in Amsterdam. From Schiphol, you might then, if you didn't fly from here with KLM, you might get onto a KLM flight that takes you up to an airport in the United States. If your actual destination is not the airport of arrival, you'll still be able to connect to another airport, to another destination within the United States and come back the same way without necessarily using one airline.
For instance, Kenya Airways has a direct flight to New York now.
Yes.
I'm imagining that if they fly somebody from New York, a Ugandan who wants to connect to Kampala, they can easily negotiate, and that Ugandan can fly on the crane back to Entebbe. And the same applies to Tanzania. They can fly somebody to Dar and somebody can fly from Dar to Entebbe. So there are intricate negotiations that need to happen. I think it's also at the level of being able to entice or to convince the other party to actually give out something to you. There will be need for the region to understand that actually Uganda needs to have its airplanes in the air, and since internationally it's also recognized that Uganda had roots I think some of them will be given back as a concession, because I know there are certain routes which were allegedly sold off, like the Ethiopian
I think
Airways.
national routes don't get sold off because they are fifth freedom rights. I think something called fifth freedom rights, which allow you, if your airline is coming into my area, then I have a right to come into your area.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and the trade-off was if the routes for Uganda, for example, if Uganda was no longer flying to certain routes, destinations rather, do you keep those dormant, or you can lease them out to someone else? You can allow a friendly neighbor to use them.
Exactly.
But just before, let me ask production to help us. Ivan Rugamba was trying to invoke our patriotism. So put those rates up if you can. All the rates of the areas will be going to. Uganda Airlines plans to be flying into Mogadishu. Yes. One of the major routes, by the way, they say that looks like has a lot of potential, to Nairobi, to Kilimanjaro, to Dar es Salaam, to Arusha, to Mombasa, I think Goma Zaire, I think later think about Kinshasa, and Khartoum, and Juba.
People have been asking about Kigali.
No, give me the rates, the rates, so that people know if they want to book and they can fly.
As but the one of the things come in, Charles.
Yes.
Ken has talked about the entering into negotiations, and I think that's inevitable, especially with the emergence of the African free trade area, because with the advent of the continental free trade area, countries are in negotiations now to specialize in areas where they have competitive advantage, and I think that for flights and air travel, countries will have to negotiate for areas where they have competitive advantage, where they travel often, and so every airline does not have to run to every destination.
Okay. Yeah. As you can see the rates on the screen there, Nairobi return ticket 278. That's a promotional. Those are promotional fares. Return to Juba 225. This has been actually one of the most expensive routes. Also, Juba has been quite expensive. Mogadishu return $590. Dar es Salaam return $286. Bujumbura return 292, Mombasa return 325, Kilimanjaro return 311, and these include taxes.
Yes,
is important. But you see, Uganda Airlines is coming into this to compete.
To compete, yes.
It cannot be out-competed because it is entering to compete with those that have been flying these routes. It's trying to get into. So it's entering aware that Rwanda Air, for example, has established itself, has learned through experience that Kenya Airways has monopolized these routes within the region, that Ethiopia Airways is in here. And people are talking about the Mogadishu route. It's emerging as one of those very, very attractive routes for different airlines, not just within the region, but globally. Many people are trying to come into Mogadishu. I'm excited about the Mogadishu route a little bit because maybe it finally gives an opportunity to Ugandans to gain a share of the sacrifice of the Uganda People's Defense Forces and the other related allies to return sanity to that Horn of Africa country. Because even the Juba route, you send in the UPDF, you send in the Uganda police, you send in Ugandans, they sacrifice and lose blood, and we lose blood, we lose lives in there. We shed blood, rather, in those areas. And the nationals have very little benefit from there by doing trade because of the sheer complications of accessing some of those markets. So I'm hoping that maybe this provides some opportunity for Ugandans to be able to gain a share, even to go for tourism to Mogadishu and say, this is where the UPDF has been. This is where we've been sacrificing for so much.
But it's been happening. When you see South Sudan, for example, the trade, the exponential trade that has been happening with South Sudan, that trade was not happening. Rwanda, we are now ruining the loss of trade because of the current standoff between Rwanda and Uganda. But before 1994, before the RPF taking over Kigali with the support of the,
Ivan, with due respect, there is a difference between sitting on the table and picking crumbs. Yes, and for the most part. No, let me tell you. For the most part, the Ugandans who attempted to do some reasonable business with the government of South Sudan, are they going to be paid by the government of Uganda? One of the controversies around the compensation of Ugandans who lost money for supplies to South Sudan. The other countries within the region that you might say didn't sacrifice as much as Uganda has, have benefited in multi-million dollar deals. They are establishing serious businesses. Here you're talking about people vending, taking pineapples, you're talking about vendors, you're talking about border riders.
Everybody must sell what they have. Uganda's exports are still dominated by agricultural products, even in our trade with Kenya. Maize, maize grain and the poultry products and all of these. So these are some of our leading products.
We need to aspire better.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm saying that the trade is happening. And those are the products that benefit ordinary people.
And the
because it's not the banks, it's not the studios who are going to set up there.
And the government needs to drive this country to higher ambition.
That's true.
The government.
Yes.
Yes.
Charles, my take on why Mogadishu is strategic and important. First of all, we have a number of Ugandans who are working there, who occasionally find time to come back home. So you are assured that there are a certain group of people who are going to travel. We have a UN base in Entebbe, and once in a while we have people from the UN who travel to Somalia. We also have people from the African Union who travel to Somalia. So there's a ready market already for an airline, and this could be an entry point. But the most important aspect that I would look at, which has not yet been taken on board, is the cargo aspect. Because at the moment, Uganda Airlines says that they are going to find a partner who will be able to help them to handle cargo at the moment, because we have not been able to procure planes that actually
cargo planes
can do the cargo. And I'm thinking the cargo will be very important for Uganda, because then you are sure that people who are dealing in agriculture products can be able to directly take them to Juba,
especially
take them to Mogadishu, fly flowers as far as New York, Amsterdam, and all these other places. So I think they need to move in very fast and deal with the cargo aspect. Hoping they can also rein in and deal with the private investor who is already handling ground handling at Entebbe, which is also a very critical aspect as far as an airline is concerned.
My only issue with
I was thinking, someone might need to help me. We have another Ugandan air company, fully government owned, called Uganda Air Cargo.
Uganda Air Cargo.
Yes. Isn't that handling the cargo aspect, or do they need at some stage to merge the two to make sure that?
I'm not very
because
sure.
Because Uganda Air Cargo has been.
I'm not very sure if it flies out of Uganda.
It was grounded alongside.
I'm not very sure. I'm not certain about that. And generally with the issue of cargo, I'm not very sure whether we have enough cargo that Uganda Airlines can actually fly out. I don't think we have done enough agriculture, but actually now we have enough cargo that Uganda Airlines can actually fly it.
Actually, we do.
Country.
Actually, we do, because I have been told previously that international airlines like Qatar,
yes,
Qatar was putting daily flights specifically to deal with cargo. Daily.
But if you even
and you see the availability of transport can also
maybe
not only production, it can increase the demand for our products. If somebody is in Europe and they are very sure that you can deliver the flowers on time, they can even increase the uptake, and it becomes very critical. Already knowing that you have the means to reach that particular market. So I think cargo, having planes that can do cargo, will help actually to bring out the best as far as our production is concerned, but also provide us the leeway to actually supply the markets that are out there.
You see, for example, this part of what sparked of the uprising in Sudan now in Khartoum was insufficient food rations, especially the price of bread, but also like food. And you have here, for example, recently we've been having overproduction of many products. I remember the president saying part of his regional integration gospel and why the justifications he was giving. He was giving that example of Khartoum, saying if we had an opportunity, for example, connectivity and access, then we would be able to export many of these products to some of these countries. I think that in the area of agriculture, Uganda still enjoys a competitive advantage, and the airline can only harness that potential in terms of growing our trade.
Maybe a comment on the fares. As a traveler, I would want the most competitive rates.
Yes.
If I had a ticket to get me out of Entebbe to Nairobi at $50, I would want that. If I was to fly to Johannesburg, return at $200, That's what I would want. So if there are many airlines coming in here, they need to leverage elsewhere. They can't just appeal to my patriotism.
Yes.
It's about the quality of service.
Quality of
It's about the
service,
quality
yes.
of service. It's about the cost of that service.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the most important is actually the quality of service,
Quality
the
of service is most
experience.
important.
Because you see, many people have been on the Twitter here, on social media, complaining about Kenya Airways and how you schedule flights and then they have to schedule without notice. Like the atrociousness of the services. that some of them
I'll tell you an example. One day I was delayed for a flight out of this country. I was very late. And I was running like crazy to get to the airport. And I reached the airport, and there was a delay of another 1 hour. the flight, the airline itself had been late. It was delayed. Even after arriving at the airport, fairly late, they delayed by an hour. And I was told that happens if the numbers, because you want to get every last passenger to come in, and you must make sure that, that they come in. My only concern is, you flying out to all these destinations, chances that you'll take out a full flight and return a full flight.
very minimal.
Yeah, very minimal. And what does that mean? Economies of scale, are you going to be able, how do you balance that out? Maybe we'll have more Ugandans flying if they realize that price was reasonable. Yes, because what keeps people away from from flying is price largely. Yes. If somebody thinks about flying, that's a very expensive venture, so they will not even bother.
Well, there is the other government strategy of saying that all government officials will be flying by Uganda Airlines. Probably if they are going for meetings around the region. Maybe that one could also help and ensure that there is a particular amount of money. But there should also be discipline within government to actually be able to pay, because I have heard that this is exactly what used to happen in the past. Somebody would just pick a phone and call and say, we are traveling to New York and I have to go, and it's very important, it's on government of Uganda business. They go, but the money has never been paid. And then a problem comes in, the airline becomes bankrupt, it collapses. So I think
it begins by increasing prices for everyone else to cover for the deficit. Like you have with government-sponsored students. At university. they keep leaning on the paying students to cater for those who are not paying. And I think if government doesn't divorce itself from Uganda Airlines, it will not stay in the skies. It will collapse.
Yes.
I think there's one aspect, gentlemen, that we haven't discussed that we might need to. Can Uganda Airlines, this is a question I put directly to the management of Uganda Airlines. Can you guarantee that you will offer the direct flights you're promising consistently? That there will be a direct flight that flies out of Entebbe direct to Kilimanjaro? That you don't have to go through other places in the name of a direct flight. That if you say you're going to Mogadishu and it's a direct flight, it's not stopping over in Nairobi to try and pick up more passengers and then go direct. You don't want this taxi business where you board a taxi and it says direct to Kampala from Barara and there are 7 passengers and then they begin picking up people and dropping them and you get more irritated.
But on that, I think Uganda Airlines is actually going to use the routes that Air Uganda used to use, because Air Uganda used to fly directly from Entebbe to Mogadishu, and I have a feeling that they're also going to do the same. Air Uganda used to fly directly to Dar es Salaam, used to fly direct to Kilimanjaro, and I have a feeling that that's what they're going to do as well, given that even a technical team in the new Uganda Airlines were part of Air Uganda. So I have a feeling that they have learned from that experience, and they're going to rely on that in their expansion plans as well.
And I also think the frequency of flying to Kilimanjaro will also be minimum. I don't think they can have a direct flight on a daily basis. It could be twice in a week or once in a week or something like that.
It depends on the number of passengers available on a particular route.
You are able to sort of mobilize the passengers to be able to mitigate on the costs and by the amount of money they are bringing in. So,
but you do that if Air Tanzania is not offering the same route. You see, if Air Tanzania or Fly 540, for example, is saying, we are going to give you this route to Kilimanjaro and we are available every day. So if you say Uganda Airlines, for us we shall do 3 days.
3 days in a week.
3 days in a week.
Yes.
The other guy says, no, for us we shall give you 4 days in a week. You still struggle for the passengers.
Yes.
Let's take a commercial break, gentlemen, and when we come back, we'll be discussing the controversy around Genos and invoking their service to this country, their sacrifice to this country, not their service, their sacrifice to this country. Of course, there was that retirement of 19 Genos. We'll mix it with this discussion of the controversy in Parliament involving Moses Kisa. Moses Kisa is business editor at Isaac Kisa.
Isaac.
Sorry, my apologies. Moses Kisa, Dr. Moses Kisa used to be a regular guest here. Isaac Kisa is business editor at the Independent magazine. We have Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, producer and journalist at Radio 1. He spent years. You still serve, or you still report from Parliament. We have, yes, because you have grown and you're getting more responsibilities on the desk. Ivan Rugamba is a writer and social critic associated with the Media Center. Specifically, he works for GCIC and the Corporator magazine. Gentlemen, let me ask production, could you help us with those exchanges in Parliament involving Gen Elly Tumwine, who is the Minister for Internal Affairs? Security, Minister for Security, sorry, my apologies. Minister for Security.
On Tuesday, Parliament resolved to refer Security Minister Gen Elly Tumwine to its disciplinary committee for allegedly making disparaging remarks against the person of the Speaker and Parliament. The claims were raised by Bukonjo West MP Atkins Godfrey Katusabe. Several members of Parliament spoke on the matter, among them Cecilia Ogwal.
You actually pull a pistol at me, and I reported you to the sergeant at arms. If there is anybody in this Parliament who feels I have injured him or her, forgive me.
A while later, Ogwal returned to the floor, accusing Tumwine of threatening her. Today, the General has accused Ogwal of peddling lies about him.
I have known her for long. I am repeating it here. She is an adamant liar. I have never pulled a pistol on anybody.
General Tumwine feels that he was not given the time to explain himself.
After that, the Speaker did not even allow me to complete. She just ruled that they vote on the House votes on the motion, and the motion was voted on and finished. I have no problem with going to the committee.
He feels there is a deliberate attempt to malign the UPDF.
All those allegations are hot air. It's a few people who are trying to tarnish the name of UPDF. But we shall defend that name.
Gentlemen, Gen Elly Tumwine is no stranger to controversy. Let me start from there. And he is no stranger to invoking his service, to his sacrifice to the peace that we enjoy. But this looks quite strange. He is emphatic. He says, Cecilia Ogwal, these are some of the two most senior legislators that this country has, with quite storied legislative histories. And they have known each other for many years. Cecilia Ogwal was quite an important figure in the UPC government, defeated by the Tumwines, and she stayed. She was at one time leader of the Presidential Policy Commission when President Milton Obote was still in exile. Then she has now, she's where she is at the moment. Who is lying, who's telling the truth? What does this say? Anderson, let me start with you. You rub shoulders with these guys. You've known them, like Tumwine says, he has known Cecilia Ogwal for quite some time.
Well, it's really a strange situation, but for us to prove whether one of them is lying, I think we have to critically follow the investigations that are going on in the Rules Committee. Because Cecilia Ogwal actually says Tumwine pulled a pistol, and then the following day Tumwine goes to Mbarara, addresses the journalist and says she's a liar, and then brings in that notion of people trying to destroy the image of the UPDF. But I think we need to, the story didn't sort of bring in the true picture. From what I've heard, this thing was actually begun by Honorable Katusabe.
Atkins.
Yeah, the story did mention about him, but apparently Honorable Katusabe went to Tumwine's office to find out about a policy that had allegedly been announced by his ministry, the shoot-to-kill policy in Kasese. And so that's where the problems began from. And Atkins Katusabe claims that it's at that point that Tumwine actually said that you can take the matter to Parliament, what will Parliament do? And so when Katushabe came back to report to Parliament and complained that General Tumwine was actually acting in a manner that does not put Parliament in good light, that's where the issue started, and Cecilia Ogwal came up to present her case. I saw a video, CCTV footage, trying to show the confrontation between Cecilia Ogwal and General Elly Tumwine. And you could clearly see that General Elly Tumwine was angry. The gestures he was doing, moving up and down in the lobby, and there were a number of MPs who were around. Some of them have actually been to this committee and said the confrontation did happen. But sadly, we do not see Cecilia Ogwal in the others, because the camera does not sort of present the picture of what was happening the other side. So you can see General Elly Tumwine moving up and down, but you don't see Cecilia Ogwal. But I'm thinking the committee should be able to extract the audio, to be able to tell General Tumwine was having an exchange with who. I think Tumwine also points out a key issue in his address to the journalists in Mbarara when he talks about the UPDF. I think it all goes back to the role of the UPDF in the Ugandan Parliament. Should they be in Parliament or not? Because if Cecilia Ogwal is right by saying that Tumwine did pull a pistol on her, it means Tumwine was able to go through the checkpoint at Parliament and moved through with the pistol, because I've seen the manner in which they do it at Parliament. If you are armed, you deposit your gun somewhere, and then you go and enter in the chambers. It's actually against the rules of Parliament.
But
for you to access
what has this
the
to do with
precincts of Parliament when you are armed.
What does this have to do with the UPDF? Some of the major incidents we have had involving guns have not involved members of the UPDF. But the last major controversy we had around Parliament involving a gun was Minister Ronald Chibule. He has never been anywhere near the UPDF, near the army. Well, the best he might have done was possibly Chakamchaka course and these things they do in Chankwanzi. But he had a gun, and I mean, he was allegedly armed, and he went into the chamber with a gun. So does that have to do anything with the UPDF or the character of the individual who might be armed? And then we have also seen other incidents, even outside Parliament, of people moving around with guns when they do not necessarily belong to any of the security agencies.
Well, when you hear the other things,
the CCTV footage is online.
Yeah, when you hear the other aspects that came out, you, before we began this show, actually in your opening remarks, you spoke about the words that General Tumwine used when he was saying, actually, we sacrificed for this country, for some of you to be able to be here. That sense of self-entitlement, you know, it has been used as an argument before to actually ensure that the UPDF is in Parliament, and it is something that was catered for in our constitution, because they actually want their place preserved, even in Parliament. So it's a bigger debate that actually points to that direction. Although, like you rightly said, General Tumwine is not somebody who is very strange when it comes to issues of controversy. I remember he had controversy with the management of National Theatre at one point. You remember the issues of normal gallery. There are also issues... Well,
those were business disagreements.
There were business disagreements, but you could still see that he tries to use his position as a general to be able to have his way in whatever he was doing. So it all goes back to partly his character, but there are some people who have actually angled it in that direction, that perhaps we should rethink the presence of the army in Parliament, because it becomes a justification for some of the things that General Tumwine does.
Ivan, coming to you. Yeah, like I said, Tumwine stokes controversy. But in terms of argument, when they're making their presentations, Cecilia Ogwal, equally, in her normal speech, she's quite forceful. She can be quite forceful. So it would have been interesting if we were able to get the CCTV footage and the audio that shows her own expressions to counter, to balance the pacing up and down of Tumwine.
You know, Charles, first of all, I even didn't know why this was a matter of, such public contention, because if somebody misbehaved in Parliament or in how he talked to a colleague. There are parliamentary rules that govern the conduct of members of Parliament in relation to one another. That's why there is a committee on discipline and rules and in Parliament. So that should ordinarily have been an internal matter of Parliament to be discussed
it can't be for one reason, because when members of Parliament have issues, their best platform is the plenary. And this matter was brought before the plenary. And because the media is there covering plenary sessions, you pick it up. And if one member, Atkins Katsabe, stands up and makes his presentation, raises the issues he raises, then Cecilia Gwal supplements, then you saw Betty Numbers are there, and other members of Parliament, and then the Speaker has to make a ruling and say, no, take this matter to a committee.
Yeah. But,
it's a valid
but also, Ivan, if it's true, like Cecilia Gwal is actually saying that General Tumwine did pull a pistol on her.
Yeah,
it's
a
problematic situation.
Yeah.
It means there's a problem of security in Parliament, and if you go back and try to see what happened during the Toji Kwatako debate and the presence of soldiers in Parliament, and you mix up that debate, you can clearly see it will be a security concern, given the manner in which Parliament transacts its business.
But Anderson, this issue of General pulling out the gun or the pistol, is there anyone else who saw it?
There were people around, like you saw in the CCTV footage, people who actually are supposed to be before that committee. Some of them were in that committee.
Could you guys help me put
what
back
happened? There were some members.
Because I believe there must be some people around,
because Parliament
or General who saw actually the
Parliament is
the
most
in that case.
Parliament is one of the most secured.
And I do not think the incident of pulling the pistol is actually during that exchange that we are seeing, because that exchange was actually triggered by the debate that we saw in the House. After Cecilia Gwal had spoken about General Tumwine pulling a pistol on her, she sort of went out in the lobby, and then that's when General Tumwine followed her to go and confront her there, to actually tell her, why were you doing, I think to sort of corner her, to tell her that maybe what she has said was wrong. So the time frame within which the pistol was allegedly drawn and the time of the confrontation are completely different.
From what I have heard, Cecilia Gwal say, she doesn't say that, she uses the words pulled a pistol.
Pulled a pistol, yes.
But what in her explanation, she says she saw something like a pistol, and Tumwine's hand was somewhere near his waist.
You see, that's a problem, and this is very strange coming from Parliament, because Parliament has CCTV cameras. It is one of the most secured institutions. So if you cannot collect evidence, or if you cannot find or prove allegations in that context, then how is the public expected to internalize this issue or debate it? But I wanted to speak.
Numbers said she saw a barrage somewhere.
So I think that it is even very strange that members of Parliament, for example, can make such allegations on the floor of Parliament on suspicions that if you hold yourself like this, then you most probably had a pistol or were trying to pull out a pistol. Unless a pistol can be proved or can be presented, then I think it's a whole different case. I think that Tumwine is a right to be angry if such allegations are being made that he went with a pistol in Parliament when he actually didn't do so. But on the issue of the Army's presence in Parliament, oftentimes we argue this as if this is the first time MPs UPDF or soldiers are in Parliament. In the UN,
look, the footage is there now. You can have a look at it.
Yes.
Can you just take us back a little? Yes, that one.
And
Tumwine is holding a book.
You can see there are people around.
Yes. You see. So there are people around. There are CCTV cameras that show those people. Surely why can't we prove?
Tumwine comes back.
When it comes back, yes.
And he's trying to make a point to whoever he's making. That's an argument, clearly.
Yeah. And arguments are normal. I mean, if your colleagues, or whether your colleagues or what, arguments are normal, part and parcel of human interaction. So that should not be strange. I think that what the Parliament has to prove.
Does the thing that Lukwago raises, which I think is valid, does Tumwine, in his manner of speech, in his appearance in the committee, on the floor of Parliament, that press conference he gave in Mbarara, does he come off like he feels he's entitled to this space? Because he doesn't hold a constituency apart from the military. He was sent into a special seat, which is UPDF representatives.
Yes,
and the validity of the debate of whether that entitles him to behave in whichever way. Yes, they can have disagreements. Even other members of parliament do have disagreements, but they can have disagreements. It raises the question about, should the army be in that
First
space?
of all,
And if he goes to make an argument to defend himself, must he invoke his sacrifice and the sacrifice of the UPDF?
you know, Charles, I think that speaks, the interpretation, that interpretation speaks to the understanding or the mindset of the people making allegations against him more than it does about him. Because you see, there's this assumption that, this temptation to, if a member of the UPDF or a soldier for that matter or a general says a comment, to link it to his history and all. If Tumwine says this is an attempt to frame the UPDF, Tumwine represents the UPDF in parliament. It is like if a member of parliament from Remiaga, for example, says the people of Remiaga, when I'm speaking, or the people of Remiaga, I mean, you're there as a representative of the UPDF.
No, but a member of parliament for Remiaga wouldn't say this is an attempt to frame the people of Remiaga.
Yeah, but I am saying that if you are a UPDF,
if his character was brought into question, would he invoke the people of Remiaga?
Would he say that I was acting on behalf of the UPDF?
Who?
No, on behalf of the people of Remiaga. His disagreements with Cecilia Gwal have nothing to do with the UPDF.
Yeah,
that's personal conduct.
Yeah,
yes.
But I don't know if that in any way distorts or brings another dynamic to the debate. The fact that he said this is an attempt to frame the UPDF, how does it change the
I think by Gen Elly Tumwine bringing in that aspect, he's trying to find a safe haven. He's trying to create a constituency that should suddenly come up and defend his position. Yes. Because if it's something to do with his character as a person, he shouldn't be bringing in the UPDF. Because in parliament, there are rules that govern each individual member of parliament. And one rule that I know, you are not supposed to enter the chambers, you are not supposed to enter the precincts of parliament when you are armed. So if he went there, I don't think he sought the advice of the UPDF to be able, because the army is supposed to be under.
But you know, we are
civilian.
I say something. You know, in this town, you have something called, do you know who I am?
It's a
basically,
it's a common thing.
By invoking his sacrifice and the sacrifice of...
By the way, in those clips, we don't see where Tumwine speaks.
No, he did speak on the floor of parliament. At least that he did speak on the floor of parliament, and he did speak in the committee of parliament. And we have that, I mean, we have seen that, we have listened to it. He's saying, do you know who I am? I am a general of the Uganda People's Defense Forces. I sacrificed to bring this peace and to allow, because those are exactly the accusations that Atkins presented on the floor when he said he went to interact with him. And we have had this before. We have had it before the Justice Ogola inquiry.
Where
you remember?
were you when we were fighting?
Where were you when we were fighting? They keep coming up.
You know, Charles, I keep on wondering when that talk will actually come to an end. Because every other day, an officer who went to the bush will always tell you how they fought for this country. So every time I keep asking myself, really, if you went to the bush, am I the one who sent you to the bush? And when you will stop actually issue of invoking about the bush, we are now in a different transition. You should be now telling us how do we move forward, instead of telling us, you know, we went to the bush. Do you know me?
You see, we are not completely in a different transition. That's why you still see the presence of the army in parliament.
No, but you see, Kenneth, and I wanted to respond to the issue of the presence of the UPDF in parliament. This is not the first time that the army is represented in parliament in Uganda's history. In the UNLA government, the army was actually represented in parliament. So this is not a creation of the NRA.
Those are the wrongs that the NRA actually went to the bush to
that was the wrong was not the presence of the army in parliament.
The UPDF is supposed to be under civil authority.
Yes.
And if you have the UPDF in parliament where they are taking part in discussions of civil authority, it becomes a problem. I think
there is historical
we need to address that
issue. The army's involvement in the political affairs of this country.
How will it end? When will it end? For how long will the army
we
be
should
in parliament?
be asking, should it end? Because you see, every time in the political life of Uganda, the army has had a central place. Some has been for bad, some has been for good. You know. So
where would you place incidents like this? For bad or for good?
but I think that for me, there is also a context in when somebody talks about their involvement in the war. You see, Tumwine tried to say, look, we went to the bush to fight, so people like we can have this freedom, or we cannot have this freedom to debate these things, or to put me to task. I cannot be the one pulling out a gun before you. There is a context to this, but when you get a statement and strip it of context, then it can create a...
But you see, Ivan here earlier on said that there is actually no evidence of Tumwine saying that.
Yes.
And he seems to be putting words in his mouth.
No, I am saying...
Did you actually see Tumwine saying that the reasons why they went to the bush was to ensure that we have a debate on such issues? Because you seem to say earlier that, look, there is no evidence suggesting that Tumwine did actually say that, did actually bring out that sense of self-entitlement. That's what you were trying to say.
No, I asked whether there is a group of that self-entitlement, raw, abstract entitlement of saying, you cannot hold me to account because, oh, you know who I am, I went to the bush. And
No. Let me give context. The accusations that Atkins Katsabe presents to the House are that when he went to make those inquiries, Tumwine told him that you can report if you want, including to the Speaker. The controversy begins from there. So it's not stripping of context.
And he actually
we need to put the
qualifies it and
context.
says
Yes,
nothing
that's
Parliament
the
will
qualification. There's nothing Parliament will do. If that is true or not, because it hasn't been subjected to test yet. Katsabe made the accusations, made the allegations on the floor of Parliament. The Speaker ruled. Tumwine complains in that press conference and says, the Speaker did not give me an opportunity to defend myself. She just put the matter to vote and sent it to the committee.
Yes.
But
now,
actually we see that
yes.
he was given the opportunity to defend himself.
No, not adequately. He doesn't feel like he had an adequate time
talking about the
and he also has a more avenue
explain
to
himself
defend
fully.
himself in the committee.
We'll wait and see how this plays out in the committee. The question is, when he first appeared before the committee, many members believed he was bullying them, and he gave them conditions. Once you fulfill my conditions, I'll come and
He asked for a full week, but it was narrowed to 3 days to prepare.
Which should be within his rights to say, I need time to prepare my defense if you're going to accuse me.
And the committee ruled, if he asked for a week and they told him, no, we are giving you 3 days, then
And he
there was
accepted that.
No problem with that. There's no problem with that.
But I think that the Army's presence in Parliament is something, a debate we can always have. I just don't think that the one individual officer, even by this whole talk of the army we fought, by the way, if you are to list the number of officers who have said it, or talk to, there may be Muhwezi, there's maybe Tumwine, it is Kasiria Gwanga, and there are about 4. So for the 4 to be assumed to be the face and the reflection of the entire mentality or mindset of an entire generation or an entire command that has over 40 officers and men of the institution of the UPDF, I think is also fair, is very unfair.
Well, as we come towards the end of this discussion, the UPDF retired 19 generals, the highest number to be retired in one go.
And none of them has ever talked about how they went to them.
Among those who retired, maybe those who are refusing to retire.
They have not been in positions where they can see.
No, people like Koreta have done it all. They sit in Parliament there. They're very humble officers. Even among those who were retired, people like Mugumbe has been deputy CDF, has been deputy CDF. There are people who have been high rank and file of the UPDF that have occupied very senior positions and have retired honorably.
Definitely, there are very few people within every institution who will speak. Put on the uniform and imagine that the uniform is speaking to everybody. Everybody must see. Those we meet on the streets and they are putting on hazard lights. No, not hazard lights. They have put these
double indicators.
No, they're these Masape lights of sirens that they use to menace off everybody else off the road and feel
and there are stars on the vehicle.
No, there are those who actually don't have. They have private SUVs that they are driving, and they have these blue and red lights that they keep flashing, and they have put individual sirens. So someone blares a siren, and you're in traffic, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, who's this important person?" And then you give way, only to find that it is some character, which is a bit of a problem.
But those are individual problems, and I think that individuals should be held account. And even for Tumwine, wait for the committee to see the evidence,
We might want to look into the history of Parliament and how it has resolved similar issues before. How committee reports
how
have
did the
been
Chibule
treated.
incident end? Chibule, I think, apologized for Parliament.
Well,
But even Tumwine has apologized, so...
Tumwine apologized.
Yes.
You saw him in the
Then
clip.
that
He
means
did
that's the end of
apologize.
it.
I'm sorry if there is anybody offended.
Yeah.
Yes.
So individual errand officers should be questioned and sanctioned, but I think there's temptation to make it a reflection of the entire mindset or mentality of the UPDF. I think is an unfair interpretation of these individual acts, and I think that we need to.
Don't you think there's fairness in what signal such conduct sends to young and junior officers?
Young officers.
If they see their most senior general behaving in a particular way as untouchable, if a general invokes untouchability and says, me, I'm above everybody else, how do you expect the others to behave?
But examples can be both ways. Someone can look at the general collector, for example, one other officer was not imagining that controversy and say, I want to aspire to be such a disciplined, patriotic officer, and you know.
Okay, just a quick comment from each one of you gentlemen on the retired generals, and we'll move on. Kisa, it's not common that in other armies, you got to learn to give credence where it is and give credit where credit is due. In its few armies that would do such massive retirement, and everybody goes back to their farm and wherever they wherever they came from.
Actually,
nobody raises questions.
Actually, we don't know where they're going to their farms, actually. But I'm happy for them that let them go, have some rest, do some other things. They have served this country well. It's good for them to go and have some fun with their families.
Yeah, Nathan Mugisha has quite a storied history. He has fought many battles. Wills Jim Biarugaba. I saw one, Major General Engineer Timothy Mtevile. They say he's going to contest Kabale municipality.
Yeah,
I think he's joining politics.
The biggest chunk will actually go political.
Major General Nathan Mugisha is already Uganda's deputy ambassador to Somalia.
Yes.
Yeah, he's already deputy ambassador to Somalia. I think that there is a lot that these officers can do. You see, a person of that rank is a very distinguished person and with belts of experience, you know, with wealth of experience.
I was very happy to see Brigadier David Kaboyo on that list of retirees. I think he's one of those guys who have really served for a very long time, and his health wasn't good for some years. So to see him retiring is good.
So these are the stories. These are stories like I think that we give very limited attention to people who are not controversial, that we often focus ourselves on the controversial.
But would it be good to get rid of the controversial ones? For instance, we talk about General David Sejusa.
Yes.
Still
They
being paid.
to retire
He's
him.
not active. He has no any deployment.
He has demanded that he be
demanded
retired.
that should be
He went to
retired.
court
He
to be
has gone
retired.
to court. You see, but you still hold him there. Why?
Gentlemen, our time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much for making time for the show. Isaac Kisa, business editor at the Independent magazine. Thank you very much. Ivan Rugambwa, writer and social critic, GCIC and the Cooperator magazine. Thank you very much. Kenneth Anderson Lukwago from Radio 1. Thank you very much to the production crew that's there plate to deliver this show to you, and especially, most importantly, thank you very much to you, all our viewers who are the reason this show continues to run. From me, good night.